Hi, I'm Kat and today I have for you a true crime case, a word in Romanian, and I will also be doing my makeup at the same time. The word for today is ziar. Z-R. Ziar. Well done guys, you just said newspaper. And no, I'm not removing the Christmas lights behind me because my Christmas lights, they transitioned from being Christmas lights to being ambient lights, so you will be seeing them the whole year, and I'm sure that my husband is going to be thrilled about that. And now let me just ask you something. How would you feel if not only your family member would be killed in the most brutal way imaginable, but the murder photos would be plastered on front page newspapers and all over social media before you even found out they were killed? This is exactly what happened to Ingrid and her family. She was a young woman who was tragically killed at the age of 25. She was a student pursuing a master's degree in tourism, business and administration, and had a bright future ahead of her. But her life was cut short at the hands of her own husband in front of his autistic son. The brutal nature of her murder and the publication of the pictures of her body in newspapers and social media sparked widespread outrage in Mexico and condemnation from women's rights groups. It seems that the crime scene photos were shared by the police at the scene and the forensic team as well. Ingrid Escamilla Vargas was born on October the 3rd, 1994 in Juan Galindo municipality, the northern mountains of Puebla in Mexico, where she was crowned beauty queen in 2013. She was an exceptional young woman, always smiling, full of love and always there for others. She had just completed a master's degree in business administration at the Benemérita Universidad de Puebla in 2019. Close friends of Ingrid described her as a kind, gentle and sweet-hearted girl, even though she had a difficult childhood in the Vallejo neighborhood in Mexico City. The youngest of all of the siblings, her mother abandoned them when they were young and her father took care of her and her other four sisters, one of them being her twin sister. Tragically, in around 2017-2018, her father passed away, but he left behind smart and caring young women and extremely grateful to their father for raising them and loving them unconditionally. Ingrid showed her love for others in every possible way. Every chance that she had, Ingrid thanked her father for always being there for her. Every June 26th, on her father's birthday, she would dedicate Facebook posts to him. A 2018 post saying, quote, "What an incredible adventure it was to have you in my life, a person who could share his love with 5 people, who gave everything when he had nothing, who gave happy moments, knew how to keep his family united," end of quote. Apart from showing her concern for the environment on social media, Ingrid even volunteered in the reconstruction of homes in Jojutla de Juarez in Mexico after the earthquake which devastated the country on September 19, 2017. She was also an animal lover and had 2 dogs that she constantly posted photos of on Instagram. She would say that her dogs are a part of her life and them alongside her family were the most important to her. Ingrid loved good coffee, and honestly, who doesn't love good coffee? She enjoyed traveling and in short, she just loved life. On her social media, Ingrid would share photos in cities in her native Puebla and mainly in Mexico City, and in all of them you would see her with a huge smile on her face. She adored her twin sister, to whom she wrote on her birthday, attaching a photo of the 2 of them saying, quote, "She will always be a priority for me," end of quote. From what I understand, Ingrid was a mother to a boy, but I couldn't really find much information on that. After the loss of her father, Ingrid moved to Mexico City, and her commitment to her studies led her to build a close relationship with one of her professors, who was also her friend, mentor, and advisor. Ingrid began living with Eric Francisco Robledo Rosas, eventually marrying him according to various reports. He was born on 22nd of September 1973. At the time of this tragedy, Ingrid was 25 years old and Eric was 46 years old. Eric's father was a well-respected teacher in the area, and Ingrid and Eric met when he worked at the city hall. Those close to the couple saw them as calm and quiet individuals and seemed to get along really well. Eric was divorced. Seemingly he was quite well off. He also had children of his own, boys from what I understand, including a 14-year-old boy with autism who either lived with him and Ingrid or was in the home at the time of the tragic events of today's case. Eric was a civil engineer, but lately he was in and out of work. He also liked to drink, and it seems that he actually had a history of domestic violence. Although the couple seemed to get along well, showing off their love for each other on social media, actually they did have a difficult relationship. Eric's ex-wife filed 2 complaints against him over the past 8 years, including one for domestic violence. Ingrid had filed a complaint for domestic violence against him as well in 2019 with the prosecutor's office of the family courts, stating that Eric caused injuries to her about 7 months earlier, according to Milenio Television. Ingrid decided to give a second chance to the 5-year relationship that she had with Eric. There were also witnesses to their conflictive relationship. On February the 9th, 2020, Ingrid and Eric got into a heated argument which led to a fight, allegedly because of his drinking. According to him, Ingrid said that she's going to kill him and cut him on the throat with a knife, so he told her to kill him, so she tried to kill him 2 more times, and that's when Eric took the knife, stabbed Ingrid in the throat and killed her instead. Now, I need to give a trigger warning here. The details I'm going to give you next are completely disgusting. Just, make sure that you are not eating anything. After Eric killed his 25-year-old wife, he removed the skin of her body. He essentially peeled the skin of her body, removed almost all of her organs, dismembered her, then tried to dispose of her remains by throwing them down the drain, essentially flushing them down the toilet. On top of that, other remaining parts of her body were placed in green bags and scattered around the local area. Now, I've seen the photos, they are still online, but out of respect, I won't be sharing them. The only thing that I'm going to say is that you can see even fat outside on the pavement, literal fat. That's how bad he was. After murdering Ingrid, his wife, he called his ex-wife and the mother of their 14-year-old autistic child to tell her exactly what he did. His ex-wife called 911 for help after he confessed to her. Here, the story has some conflicting information. The first version is that the police arrived at the couple's home in the Vallejo neighborhood of the Gustavo A. Madero borough in Mexico City, while Eric was still cutting Ingrid's body with a knife. The other version is that one of the neighbors saw Eric outside of the home covered in blood, and they decided to call the police, and when police arrived they found him next to Ingrid's mutilated body with a knife in his hand and his own body splattered with blood. But it gets even worse. Eric did that to his wife Ingrid. He killed her in front of his 14-year-old autistic son. And guys, I don't mean to sound insensitive, and I deeply apologize if it sounds so, but I don't know how to express what I'm going to say. I don't know the level of special needs that his son requires, but no matter how well he recognized or not what happened, or even how much he's seen, it will leave him scarred for life. But it gets even worse than this. The victim's photos taken from her social media accounts, where she appeared happy and smiling, were shared on social media by internet users in an attempt to bring attention to her case and demand justice for her and family. But apart from the personal photos of Ingrid, there were people who shared images of the crime scene showing her body lying on the floor of the house. There were photos being shared of the body parts found and the skinned victim. There were front page newspapers showing graphic crime scene photos with blood all over the place and body parts, including the victim's skinned face. Gruesome images of Ingrid's were printed on the front pages of papers across Mexico on Valentine's Day 2020, on 14th of February, 5 days after Ingrid was killed. This caused a massive movement to do more against the worrying rise in femicide, as well as a backlash against the media. The images were disseminated through social networks and monopolized the front pages of most sensationalist newspapers with a national circulation, including La Prensa and Metro from Grupo Reforma. One particularly insensitive headline accompanying the image read, quote, "It was Cupid's fault," end of quote, as if mocking this horrific murder in some way. I'm telling you guys, this is the worst I've seen in terms of what newspapers publish. It's just, in my opinion, disgusting and beyond disrespectful. Just imagine the family of Ingrid having to see her in the newspapers like that. I don't even have words. And to publish crime scene photos, that would mean that these photos were leaked by the team who was there. Who else but the police and the forensics, right? How would you get photos from the inside of the house otherwise? And do you know what's even worse? Because it doesn't finish here. Because all of these photos had been shared, they cannot be used in the future trial to charge Eric with his wife's murder. Mainly because they've been seen and handled and possibly tainted evidence, so they can't really be used. Of course that Eric was taken into custody, arrested on the same day that he killed Ingrid, and it was later revealed that the officers discovered her mutilated body and plastic bags with organs in a 7-block radius from Eric's home after the crime had been committed.
Te digo que empezamos a discutir. Y seguimos discutiendo, nos empezamos a forcejear. Pues me dijo que me quería matar, le digo, pues mátame. Y le digo, pues mátame. Y estábamos ahí en la cocina. Le digo, pues de una vez. Y que saque un cuchillo, le digo, de una vez. Y fue cuando primero como que me lo enterró. Y le digo, dale más fuerte de una vez. Y me pegó como 2 veces más.
¿Y por qué la destazaste?
Porque no quería que nadie se diera cuenta.
¿Cómo fue que la mataste?
Con ese mismo cuchillo que me golpeó, se lo enterré por el cuello.
¿Y dónde tiraste todas sus partes, sus piezas?
Le digo,
La carne que le quitaste.
le digo que al drenaje.
Al drenaje lo aventaste. ¿Por qué quieres ocultar los hechos?
Por vergüenza, miedo.
Later, the authorities shared his statement, which was taken after he was captured bloody and with cuts all over his body, cuts approximately 15 centimeters long. In the patrol car, Eric declared that he argued with his wife in the early morning, and when she threatened to kill him, he defended himself and killed her instead. When asked why he decided to cut her body with the same knife that he used to kill her, he said it was out of fear and embarrassment that someone would find out what he did. He was being held in the police station while waiting for the case to proceed and for him to be punished for his crime. Ingrid was buried in her hometown of Nuevo Necasa, and dozens of internet users have requested that the images be removed from social media networks to avoid causing more pain to the family and friends. People around the world were demanding justice for Ingrid through social media using the hashtags Justicia para Ingrid and Ingrid Escamilla. Angry demonstrations broke out in Mexico City on February 14 as hundreds of women protested the gruesome slaying and mutilation of the victim. In the morning, dozens of protesters spray-painted slogans such as "We won't be silenced" on the facade and doorway of the capital's National Palace as President Andrés Manuel López Obrador was holding his daily news conference inside. Hours later, hundreds marched to the offices of a media outlet that published grisly images of the crime scene, and a newspaper truck outside was partially set ablaze. Some spray-painted the plastic shields of riot officers as the crowd chanted "Not one more murdered" and "Justice." Police actually had to unleash pepper spray. In the past, women's protests in Mexico City had been criticized for spray-painting historical monuments and trashing city infrastructure, but the damage on February 14 was minor and criticism almost non-existent. Instead, officials condemned media outlets for publishing the photos and said they were investigating police who may have taken the photos with their cell phones at the crime scene. The Interior Department said in a statement it condemns the publication and distribution of such material, given that it re-victimizes people and promotes sensationalism and morbid curiosity. It is an attack on the dignity, privacy, and identity of the victims and their families. One of the celebrities that Ingrid admired the most was Liz Ferre, who, when learning of the femicide, dedicated a moving message to her through Instagram. Quote, "She was a fan of mine and a follower of many years with whom I had constant contact through messages or went to some meet and greets. The truth is that I don't have words. I'm a bit in shock right now. Sometimes it's very easy to criticize when we see these movements against violence against women until it hits someone close to you." End of quote. On Thursday, 13th of October 2022, a judge found Eric, the murderer of Ingrid, guilty of femicide. Ingrid's family had requested the maximum sentence that, according to the law, is set at 70 years in prison for this type of crime. Ingrid's relatives appeared on 5th of October 2022 at the doors of the Reclusorio Oriente in Mexico City, which is the prison. Her mother expressed her hopes that Eric would go to jail and said that the judge listened to her daughters and her, and there is also an accumulation of evidence. Article 325 of the Federal Criminal Code sets the maximum penalty for this crime at 70 years. Whoever commits the crime of femicide will be imposed from 40 to 70 years in prison and from 500 to 1,000 days a fine, says the section of the law. In Mexico, there were, until the month of August 2022, the date of the last update, a total of 600 registered femicides, according to official data from the Executive Secretariat of the National Public Security System. Nelly Montealegre Diaz, Deputy Prosecutor for Victims of Crime and Community Services, indicated that the Mexico City Prosecutor's Office would not use any elements as evidence such as photos and videos. 6 police officers from the Secretariat of Citizen Security and the General Attorney's Office of Mexico City were being investigated for leaking photos of the femicide of Ingrid. This event has shocked all of Mexico, not only because of the cruelty of the crime, but also because of the terrifying images of the victim's body that were circulated on social media, causing outrage among internet users. According to Nelly Montealegre, the police are the main suspects in the leak of the femicide images. She also stated that if they are found responsible, they will be removed from their respective institutions. Quote, "Public servants who attended the crime scene may have improperly used the images they had access to for reasons related to their work. In this context, the attorney's office has started the corresponding investigation and will follow up until the administrative and criminal sanctions corresponding to these people participating in the leakage of these images are issued." It should be noted that the 6 public servants being investigated include police officers and forensic staff who have already been interviewed by the attorney's office for the crime of leaking images. They belong to 2 corporations, both the Secretariat of Citizen Security and the attorney's office in the forensic services area. Initially, there are 6 people possibly involved, the deputy attorney clarified. She also indicated that the 14-year-old witness to the femicide is receiving protection measures as an indirect victim. Finally, on behalf of the General Attorney's Office in Mexico, Nelly expressed her solidarity with the family. Quote, "The death of Ingrid Escamilla has been one of the first cases of femicide in the year 2020 that has completely shaken the country, not only because of the brutality with which the young woman was murdered by her partner, but also because the photos showing Ingrid's skinned corpse were leaked on social media." End of quote. In case you were not aware, femicide is generally defined as the murder of women because they are women, although some definitions include any murders of women or girls. Femicide has been used to describe killings of women by intimate partners and family members, and also gender-relating killings in the community. Figures show that 3,142 women were killed in Mexico from January to November 2019, but activists in Mexico say that too few murders are classified as femicide. The first year of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's government marked a new overall homicide record, official data shows. This is the second high-profile case in a week after a 7-year-old girl called Fatima was found wrapped in a bag on the outskirts of Mexico City. The president publicly blamed the media and said that the widespread protests against femicide and government inaction tried to pull focus from his social programs. He then went on to defend his record, saying the government are working so that there won't be any more femicide killings. He also blamed social decomposition on his former government's neoliberal policies. A tweet by a friend of Ingrid, Delia, sparked a mass response. Quote, "Friends, I once saw a case of a femicide of a girl from the US in which the images of her body were leaked and her family and friends shared photos of beautiful things so that when they looked for her name, the unfortunate photos would not appear. So here is some spam." End of quote. Using the hashtag Ingrid Escamilla Vargas, users began to flood social media with images designed to make invisible the original violent photographs. Wave upon wave of photos of natural beauty spots began to reclaim the hashtag of the victim's name, replacing the leaked police imagery with sunsets and fields of flowers. Swiss artist Zoe Aubry became fascinated by this popular social media movement. She said, quote, "This way of using images as a weapon shows the level of anger of the population of this country. It's a way of refuting the voyeurism that is signified by sharing those images of violence." End of quote. Zoe has been working since 2017 on the systemic and structural phenomenon of female murders and the issues raised by the media coverage of it. For her, the way the images of the victim were circulated both in the press and on social media exposes structural misogyny. Over the course of the last 2 years, she compiled her new photo book, #Ingrid, to pay tribute to the memory of Ingrid Escamilla Vargas, to denounce violence against women and condemn the voyeurism of a certain segment of the press. Zoe says that the book is important for her as a physical way to perpetuate the movement. It can travel more widely than an exhibition, and it doesn't have the same boundaries as social media. The movement began in Mexico City, but it continues all around the world. For her newly released photo book, Zoe meticulously organized the shared social media images in date order, reflecting the way they respond to each other, working together to build an aesthetic. Brought together in hard copy, the collection of photographs makes a powerful statement. They sparkle and shimmer, celebrating natural beauty and the emotional power of the sublime. Many are poor quality, pixelated scenes which connects them to the grassroots quality of the protest and to its status as a form of resistance. The content of the images is less significant than their existence, and together they express The capacity of images not just to document reality, but to extend our perception and express a universal depth of feeling. The global reach of the social media movement is crucial. The perpetuation of violence against women is not constrained by international boundaries, and femicide is a leading cause of the premature death of women all over the globe. The case of Ingrid Escamilla Vargas echoes the murder by a police officer of Sarah Everard in the UK in 2021, which sparked mass protests during lockdown, as well as the case of the two Metropolitan Police officers convicted for sharing photos of murder victims Nicole Smallman and Biba Henry in 2020. Zoe's photo book serves as a permanent reminder of violence against women and the complicity of the media in that violence. You can also be part of the movement by sharing any image you want of anything positive really, and just using hashtags like hashtag Ingrid, hashtag Ingrid Escamilla Vargas, or hashtag Ingrid Escamilla, just to flood the internet with positive photos alongside Ingrid's name, so we can bury deeper and deeper the horrific photos that have been shared and not allow them to see the light of day again. As a result of the dissemination of the images, the Congress of Mexico City approved Ingrid's law in 2021 to penalize with 2 to 6 years in prison those who disseminate images of fatalities by any means. In the same direction, the Chamber of Deputies gave the green light to a reform of the Federal Penal Code in 2022 that contemplates even harsher penalties, up to 10 years in prison, for officials and any citizen who disseminates photographs, copies, publishes images, videos, audio, documents, or evidence of a criminal investigation or information related to a victim. The measure has generated controversy regarding freedom of information and expression in Mexico. The massive disclosure of the images of Ingrid's body shocked society, which demanded an end to this type of explicit publication that violates the dignity of the victims and their families. The Chamber of Senators approved the Ingrid law, so hopefully this won't get to happen again. A user who identified herself as Ingrid's cousin, Nayeli Amador, used her Facebook account to send an emotional farewell letter to Ingrid. Quote, "I want to remember you like this. It was a whole life together. I have the best memories of a childhood where we were 3 girls. You, your twin, and I, who played every time we saw each other because we lived on different sides. My girl, I still think, and there is no memory where you are not always smiling, so full of life, with a voice that was heard meters away, with those beautiful hugs we gave each other when we saw each other, with a beautiful doll face, always looking out for my other twin, always being there for others, and I keep that image of you. I say goodbye to you by sending you a hug of eternal love to heaven, where you are already with my uncle. It was an honor to meet in this life. I hope in the next we will be cousins again." End of quote. Eric, her husband, Ingrid's husband, was sentenced to 70 years in prison for murdering Ingrid. He was also ordered to pay for her funeral and provide compensation to her family. In addition, his political rights were suspended and his benefits and substitutes for punishment were denied. In Mexico, it's estimated that an average of 10 females are killed by abusive partners every day, and only a small percentage of these murders are investigated or even brought to trial. Eric was transferred to the Male Psychosocial Rehabilitation Center, where he must undergo treatment for the cruelty with which he victimized Ingrid. The collective Love Is Not Violence reported that Eric's defense asked for him to be taken to a psychiatric hospital. Quote, "It was achieved. The judge determined the maximum sentence for the femicide, Eric Francisco Robledo. He will not go to the psychiatric hospital as requested by his defense." End of quote. So in the end, Eric did end up in prison. He was sentenced to 70 years. So it's safe to say that he will die in prison. His sentence is historic because for the first time in Mexico City a femicide receives the maximum sentence of 70 years according to the new capital criminal justice system. I feel satisfied, although that is not going to bring my daughter back to life. Antelma Vargas, Ingrid's mother, told the media after the sentence on the outskirts of the prison east of the capital. And this is a truly horrific story, and to think that you have these disgusting newspapers and people on social media sharing photos of a victim in such a state, it's completely unacceptable. It seems that for the sake of popularity, views and high rankings, all those people behind the tabloids and media seem to forget how to be human beings and how to treat others as human beings. Sadly, this is just a glimpse of our society today. Thank you everyone for watching. If you are interested in any of the products that I used to do my makeup in today's video, everything is linked in the description under the video. I also do take case suggestions, so if you have anything in particular that you want me to have a look at, just leave any information you have in the comments under the video. For now, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!